Alright, hopefully a quick response video to Nick the Myra Mystic from this channel. I really don't want to do any YouTube videos, but he's forcing the issue because he apparently won't respond to me ever again unless I make a video. And maybe he won't respond anyway because he's not going to like my attitude, that's for sure. You know, I really think it stinks that he can't appreciate how somebody could be a little bit irritated in doing business on a company that deletes 1,600 videos and all the comments and everything else, especially in the ironic circumstance where he just received a strike for a copyright violation. And I'll just inform you, Nick, you've got a couple other videos that are a violation of copyright. And if somebody decides to flag those, you could have 3 strikes on your account pretty damn quick. So there'll be no more clicky-click ads, no more soy makers, no more nothing, no more, you know, all the videos about how the brain works and everything, all gone, all just evaporated, okay, from the internet. And maybe then you'll understand why I really don't want to do business on this platform. So whatever, that's all I got to say about that. The fact that you can't click one link really is really insulting is what it is. But fuck that. To the point. Alright, so now you did a video on money, and I really can't believe you did a video that was this silly. I mean, it was silly. A piece of money is not an IOU. It doesn't say on this, I owe somebody something. Okay? Somebody buys this with an IOU. They sign an IOU. It just doesn't go into the bank register. A person signs a note at the bank. They sign a piece of paper, another piece of paper, a different kind of paper that says they owe somebody money. And then they get this. This is the money. Okay? This is gold. This is titanium. This is any valuable commodity on earth. This is good stuff. This is durable contract paper, whatever you want to call it. It makes this is transaction paper. It allows us to make deals, to do transactions without carrying around 15 pounds of salt or some other bullshit to make the deal. We can make the deal with this money. Alright? It's an exchange. Its function is for exchange. And that it works perfectly for that. It isn't wealth. It isn't itself anything. It's a stupid piece of paper. Of course it has no value intrinsically. It only has value because the United States government, whose name is on it, will kick your ass if you try to fuck with it. Or you try to fuck with somebody making a deal with it. Okay? The government guarantees it. And they have a big giant army and big giant tanks and big giant aeroplanes and space shuttles and spacewalkers and stuff, and they'll all come down on you if you don't treat this the way it's supposed to be treated, or if you try to fake this or try to screw with the value of this. Alright, so anyway, so you already know this stuff, though. I don't know how you could possibly look at this and call it an IOU. It's not an IOU. Alright, it's bought with IOUs. People exchange an IOU to get one of these valuable things. They buy one of these. Okay? And so when you give it to somebody else, you're giving them something valuable. You're not giving them a debt. You're giving them something that is durable in its value. So let's explain. All this money, all this talk about the Fed printing all this money and blah blah, you know it's all a pile of crap. There's a you know, up to a year ago, the Fed had printed, there was only 1 trillion of these things. Only 1 trillion. In a world economy that's like a gazillion, or whatever, at least America must be worth what? At least a couple $100 trillion worth of assets, at least. I mean, there's only 1 trillion of these, and now there's 2 trillion because the government bought a bunch of its own bonds with making more of these. But they bought bonds with it, so it still isn't really in circulation. But anyway, that's a whole nother blah blah blah. So you're talking about a tiny, this transaction stuff represents a tiny fraction of the economy. It isn't, like I said, it isn't even really worth anything. It's just transaction money. It's just a way to get some real asset that's worth real money, like gold. It's on a gold standard already. It's on an oil standard. It's on a land standard. It's on every standard, everything of value in the world. It's on a dead Chinaman in a coal mine standard. It's on every standard right now. We don't need a standard because it's already on a standard. So anyway, so look, you just have to understand, this is just transaction crap. It doesn't mean anything. So anyway, getting back to my video that I wanted you to see, the important one, that recognizes where the fucking flaw in this whole economy thing is. And it has nothing to do with this debt crap. Not a bit. Not a single lousy thing to do with debt. It has to do with wealth. It has to do with interest on ownership, which creates in the long term a consolidation of ownership. So if the rich people, if the money holders didn't lend the money, what would they do with the money? It would have to go into something. They'd have to buy a commodity with it. They'd have to buy a stock with it. And what happens then? Then the stock inflates in value. Then the real estate inflates in value because they are buyers now, directly. All debt is a way of doing the same thing, consuming, but consuming through some other mechanism, allowing some poor person to do the consuming, where they can actually make a profit on their consuming, some more interest, some more free money on their money, and they can control the risk, and they don't have to do any of the thinking. They don't have to go out and figure out whether that's a good house to buy or that's a good house to buy. They can just let the consumer do it. They'll get a guaranteed return on their money, and they'll be happy with that. So that's all debt is. But if the government didn't borrow money, and if poor people didn't borrow money, it wouldn't matter. The price, the bubbles still would be created because the surplus wealth would still have to go somewhere. It would still have to be able to acquire tangible collateral. The banks would still want to collateralize their assets. Anybody who held any paper that said they owned something, they'd make sure that that paper was real, that they actually did own something. So that would still exist. There would be people that would still own all the property. There would still be people owning all the businesses, and they'd still own all that shit at the same value it is now. The overall value of the economy would be exactly the same. The problem is this disproportion between who owns. There's a small, tiny percentage of people who own everything, and they're essentially renting it through banks, through the stock market, through all these other instruments, to the rest of the world. I mean, that's the problem. And through that renting, they keep collecting more and more money on their surplus, on their ownership. So they're not doing any work. They're collecting the largest amount of money, and they're not doing anything productive to do it. They're just feeding off of the growth in their own ownership, and the fact that that creates a bidding war that keeps bidding prices up and making them richer because they technically own most all of it. So, you know, when the houses went up on all those mortgages, they were making money. When, I mean, all of it. I mean, you can look at every level of the economy. They just keep gleaning more profit than the workers can create wealth through work. So they're making more money on wealth, on ownership, than workers can produce through work. So more value, whatever the word you want to use. I mean, ownership's got to be the better word because it obviously isn't the real value. The real value is just a relative terminology. But the real problem is that now a tiny percentage of people own everything, and the rest of the people are going to be renting from them, and it's going to be worse and worse with deflation. Those people are going to get richer, and then they're going to have a greater buying opportunity at the bottom again, and the same thing will be played out all over again, and the consolidation will just get even stronger. I mean, I don't know whether through each depression that it's going to be quicker or sooner that you get into this same scenario, but we just keep creating a slave state. We just keep migrating towards that institution, back to a nobility, back to a monarchy, back to somebody who rents the serfs and the peasants a life, and he owns their life. And that's the bullshit of this thing. But that's the real, the deficit doesn't matter. The debt doesn't matter. We'd be in the same crappy hole even if we didn't do that. Because the problem is the consolidation of ownership. And the fact that you pay owners for doing no work. Alright, enough said. So, till next time. If there is a next time. Protest video. I'm protesting the fact that I have to do this video to accommodate somebody who has